What is going on, everyone? The stock market is getting crazier and crazier as the US market is now at its most expensive valuation in history, surpassing the dot-com bubble and the run-up to the Great Depression. On top of that, the world's largest company, Nvidia, is about to report earnings tomorrow, which is going to make for some big moves. Stick with us today. What's happening now is crazier than you think.
I know that 2025 has been a very bullish year for the stock market, and as we can see, valuations have hit new all-time highs. Yes, surpassing the dot-com bubble and the Great Depression. So, Mike, valuations are through the roof, and traders keep buying up the market. Whenever I'm sitting here looking at this data, it looks at a whole bunch of metrics for valuation. You know, PE ratios, price to sales, multiple more in-depth metrics as well, and you know, by many of these metrics, as of now, valuations are at an all-time high. And the fact that valuations are higher than the Great Depression really blows my mind, right? I know a lot of people have been talking about that right now we're in an AI bubble, and I'm starting to look at this data and scratch my head a little bit and be like, okay, you know, we might be starting to get there.
Yeah, it is truly crazy and historic in many different senses. I personally love how it looks at multiple different valuation metrics, because if you only look at PE ratios or price to sales ratios or market cap to GDP or whatever else, you don't get the full picture. But this incorporates a whole lot, and it is certainly shining a pretty big signal. And another thing that's pretty interesting is that this year has been much stronger than, you know, you'd normally expect. We're in the third year of a bull run, and we can see that most of the time, year three tends to be pretty choppy, but this year is just blowing it out of the water.
Yeah, blowing away expectations, I would say. And whenever we get to that third year of the bull market, it's pretty crazy that, you know, it gets that flat. But it's good to see right now that I guess the market is doing that. It definitely helps the long-term account, I'll tell you that, Mike. But whenever we talk about the third year, obviously right now the market has been in recovery mode from April lows, and this has actually been pushing VIX to the downside. And over the past 20 weeks, VIX has actually had its largest crash in history. So the VIX actually fell 69% over that time, and as we can see going forward with some of these metrics, the S&P 500 was green 94.8% of the time after the fact 6 months later. And as we get to 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, we start to see some really green data, of course. But I found this to be pretty interesting. And of course, whenever it's the biggest decline or the biggest 20-week decline ever, you have to mention it.
Yeah, so it's safe to say we are in full-out euphoria bull trend frenzy mode right now. And what comes along with that, like you showed, is some historically bullish statistics and, you know, of course, potentially some irrational behavior, maybe a little bit. And one of those things that I thought was very interesting that I saw today is that we are actually seeing some very heavy shorting with the VIX right now, which can be dangerous if traders get caught off guard. So basically we can see here is the net short VIX positions. They're at their highest level since 2022. And again, this just helps push the VIX lower, helps push the market higher, and continues this bullish sentiment. But as we see all of these crazy statistics, like the most expensive valuation in history, or the third year of this bull run crushing expectations, or the largest VIX crash ever, it makes for a situation where, you know, if people don't protect themselves, they're about to get caught off guard big time, and that could have big implications for the rest of the market. Basically, when you have everyone caught on the bull side, if we see a shift pretty quickly, it could have some big ripple effects. And Tom, guess what's happening tomorrow? The world's biggest company is reporting earnings.
The big dog NVIDIA tomorrow in after hours. Be ready. NVIDIA is going to be reporting, and there's a few other reports like Snowflake and CrowdStrike in after hours as well, but everybody's going to have their eyes on NVIDIA, one of the biggest chip stocks out there. They're in the chip sector, of course, and they deal a lot with AI, so there's going to be big implications not just for NVIDIA, but the entire chip sector and the entire S&P 500, as of course it's the highest weighted stock in there. And Mike, we've actually been seeing bulls boosting Nvidia targets lately, especially ahead of these earnings. We can see here some of these price targets are actually pretty bullish in the short term. Number one, Evercore has a 214 price target, Morgan Stanley 200, and even like Loop Capital Markets 250. So we're seeing some pretty good targets out there by analysts on Nvidia. And right now, Nvidia is actually trading at $182 in after hours. Now, whenever I look at Nvidia's chart very carefully, Mike, it's at a pretty crucial spot. It actually retested all-time highs recently, very close to $185. And I think that everybody's looking like, okay, what's next? Is Nvidia going to get a good move through here? And the market's pricing in a plus or minus 6.8% move, which would be a little over $12. So if we're at 182 in after hours, and let's say let's just say that Nvidia runs up on earnings, that would put it right around 194, right? That is a lot higher than the all-time high. But I will say though, Mike, the all-time high is going to be pretty tough to break. As we can see here on the Bookmap, 185 has almost 1 million sellers that were stacked up there at the end of the day today.
That's crazy, but also exciting. So like looking closer at Nvidia now, like you said, this earnings report doesn't only have a direct major influence on the market, but it also has a huge influence on investor sentiment because everyone looks at Nvidia as the leader, not only of the market, but especially of this AI bubble. So when we look at Nvidia right now, what is going through your mind heading into this earnings report?
Whenever I see Nvidia here, I'm actually a bit worried, Mike. Like whenever we go back and we actually check out some of the previous earnings moves that Nvidia's had, I'll go to like an hourly chart and show you guys. So if we go back to the move at the end of May here, we can see that Nvidia actually popped up, but then dropped a couple of days after that. So it popped up initially on earnings, and then the very next morning it did open up pretty high, but then started falling off in the subsequent day, fell off once again. And we even go back to the next one from March of 2025, or I should say the very end of February, where we can see here that, again, the SPY had a very volatile move. It popped up initially, but then ended up falling back down the very next day. And honestly, there was a lot of volatility in after hours as the earnings report came out. So I'm a bit worried that what we're going to see here is maybe a fake out with Nvidia, like if we run up, break the all-time high, and then I would definitely be worried about a possible pullback coming back in the next day. And I'm really glad that I went back and looked at that to show you guys. And it doesn't mean that it's going to play out like that this time, but I think it's something to definitely keep in the back of your mind, because if we go into the next day and Nvidia's running and it's up, you might just have to be a little bit careful.
Yeah, because when you look at Nvidia over the past few years, of course, they had a handful of really great earnings reports, but like the past few of them have just been traps. So we definitely wanted to point this out to, potentially help people avoid this. Of course, with Nvidia, and especially so with earnings, it's super high risk, super high reward. But at the same time, there's nothing wrong with waiting until the earnings release actually happens. And oftentimes, you could get much better priced options if that's what you're looking to trade. But either way, this should have a pretty big impact in the market tomorrow as well. So like Tom, when we look at, let's just say the market as a whole, what's going on there? Because the past few days have been a little bit choppy.
They really have, and we can see that the SPY has been holding up pretty well for the most part, but there's a big problem, and it's the all-time high right overhead, close to 646.50 to 647. So I'm really watching the SPY and waiting to see what happens as far as the all-time high breaking out. I would say the price action actually looks great in the short term. We've been seeing a lot of good tests of this high, and I would say it's a pretty positive thing to see SPY holding up into the Nvidia earnings. Now, if SPY was dipping into the earnings and we were actively dropping, I do think that there could be a bigger worry about these earnings. But I feel like traders are fairly confident, and I feel like that the SPY is consolidating, waiting for more clarity from the earnings report before we finally see a real move come in. So the all-time high is right around 646.50 to 647. If we break that, I really like 650 as a solid target. I know I've been mentioning that level for a couple weeks now, but that's just how stuck the SPY has actually been up here ahead of a lot of these big events.
Sounds good. Yeah, that overhead resistance definitely is strong. And there was a ton of momentum on Friday from that Jackson Hole Powell speech, which is great because it definitely, helps set the tone and kind of flush out some of the preemptive short selling we were seeing. But at the same time, like if the market wants to continue to rip higher, it needs more momentum. Like it's not going to, break out in a true way if it just keeps, chopping around more than anything else. But also looking at the bear side, what are some key support levels you're eyeing up?
I really like in the short term the support right around 641.50. We've seen a few bounces at SPY off of this range, and actually this morning the SPY bounced right off of that. So I'm going to be watching that very carefully. If we end up selling off under that tomorrow, I will be more worried that the SPY could pull back and ultimately come down to retest that recent low right around 633. I think 633 will be a huge area to test over the next few trading days if there ends up being a pullback, and I would say Nvidia's report would have big implications on that. But I really like that peak down there, Mike. Like if 633 breaks down, then who knows? We might see the snowball effect start to take hold.
There we go. So we'll keep a close eye on these levels, but let's also jump into some setups and predictions because there's a lot going on right now and we should see some good moves. A stock that is definitely on my radar is GLD, and it is to the upside. And we did have a recent big money play with this one just about a week ago where the trader put like $4.5 million into the 315 strike call options that expire pretty soon on September 12th. GLD is starting to make a decent move to the upside here, partially supported on some recent news we had where Trump just removed Lisa Cook, who is a member of the Federal Reserve Board of Governors, from her position due to mortgage fraud allegations. And there's a couple of things here. So like first off, Trump technically doesn't have like power to do this, and Lisa Cook is fighting this legally. So it's hard to say if she'll actually end up getting removed, but this is helping gold prices rise because some see this attempted firing as an attack on the Fed's autonomy, basically undermining its credibility to manage inflation. So because of that, investors are buying up gold as a safe haven. Looking at GLD right now, the price action has been really good in the short term. That recent $4.5 million big money trade is very exciting as well. And I'm really liking how gold has been a very good performing asset over the past year. I know over the past few months it has been a little bit choppy, but with all the information right now, I think it's hard not to watch GLD.
I've been waiting for GLD to get a good breakout of this zone for a long time, Mike, and hopefully we start to see it test the upper end of this range, maybe more around 317, and possibly go for a breakout. Either way, I think it's very exciting, and who knows? I'm sure there's going to be a lot of comments about Lisa Cook as well. But with my first setup for tomorrow, I'm actually watching NEO to the upside. And as we can see here on the NEO chart, it had another great day today, being up over 10%. And NEO just continues to impress me in the short term. We recently broke out above a good bull flag setup, and it just continues to post crazy green candles again today with that 10% move. So for tomorrow, if we can really break above that high of day from today, close to 680 to 685, then I'll be watching for a subsequent breakout to happen. Watch it right at open as well. It generally likes to have some pretty good candles and runs at open throughout this uptrend. So if we see a 680 break, keep NEO on the radar. It's been running like crazy lately.
Yeah, it definitely has been. I will keep it close on watch. Another ticker that is also on the radar is Coinbase, and this one is, again, in a bearish way. I know I mentioned it yesterday. It had a good sell-off at open, but as the day went on, it slowly recovered higher. It's definitely still on my bearish radar, where especially if we could see a break below that $300 support level, that would be a great sign for the bear move here. Crypto has been a little bit weak in the ultra short-term sense, and again, if we could see Coinbase flush through 300, I think we could have some really good risk reward playing this one to the downside. In the worst case scenario where Coinbase continues higher, there's no need to bag hold this by any means.
Yeah, the risk reward ratio is very solid right here. And of course, $300 is a huge support. So definitely continue watching it. And with my next setup, I'm looking at Tesla. I know I talked about Tesla a little bit yesterday, and it's actually popping up here in after hours as we speak. It's finally breaking through $350 at the end of the day today. So I'm going to be watching for a good recovery and continuation out of Tesla. I've been waiting for this $350 resistance to break for a long time. So now that it's broken, I'm looking for more momentum to the upside. Again, I know I mentioned this one yesterday, but it has a really good wedge setup on the daily chart, and we're actually starting to break out and above the wedge, which is a really good bullish sign. And with the breakout today, we're actually breaking the trend of lower highs as well. So I'm really glad to see Tesla moving here, and my gosh, that is some good end of day momentum.
Seriously. All right, awesome stuff there. And let's jump right into today's momentum plays. And with the first one, we have Eli Lilly, ticker symbol LLY, to the upside.
If LLY can break out above $736, then watch for an upside continuation.
All right, with the next one, we have Boeing, ticker symbol BA, also to the upside.
Yeah, Boeing with a nice consistent move today. If they can break above their high of day close to 235, then watch them up as well.
And then with the last one, we have Adobe, but to the downside.
Poor Adobe, ticker symbol ADBE, fell down. If they end up falling under their low of day right around 354, then watch them down. We can see they actually double bottom there.
All right, so we have these three plays on the radar for potential continuations if and only if they break through the levels listed. As always, prioritize smart, disciplined, long-term oriented trading habits. You can learn all about this for free in the Key Lessons channel of the StockedUp Discord. But besides that, Tom, let's jump right into today's $3.9 million big money monster play, we'll call it. And we're looking at ticker symbol SOFI. And this trade is what I would say more interesting than most people think. Today, the trader here bought the 26 strike put options that expire on December 19th of 2025. Again, this is a $3.9 million trade, and SoFi is a fintech company that has just been crushing it over the past few years, but it does have some heavy resistance levels coming up. When we zoom out on, let's say, like a weekly chart, we can see that it is approaching its highs from February of 2021, more specifically around like $28.25, and there's another major resistance level right around $27 per share. At the same time, in a shorter term sense, we are already seeing some profit taking come in, and as we know, valuations are pretty overextended right now to the upside, which does present a very interesting opportunity playing this move lower. I like how these put options are already in the money. I like how there's a fair bit of time to them. And I also like how there's a lot of capital in this trade as well. It's definitely one worth keeping on the radar in my opinion. And I think it also serves as like a good potential bearish opportunity in a time where it seems like the market just goes up in like a crazy, unsustainable way.
SoFi is actually in a pretty crazy setup right now. It's been doing very well throughout 2025, and I'm glad to see that, but you're right. I mean, this is a major resistance overhead coming up around $27 to $28. I could see a rejection end up happening somewhere very close to here, especially with how overextended SoFi has actually become in the short term. This is a crazy big money trade, though, Mike. $4 million that they're throwing on this, and I definitely would not think that they're shorting it, being that the 26 strike is all the way up around this high, and that number one, SoFi is extremely overextended. So I'm a little bit worried about SoFi given how overextended it actually is in the short term. So I find this to be an extremely interesting and possible play here for the next few months heading into the end of 2025. I mean, $4 million too. It's no slouch, that's for sure.
Yeah, make sure to subscribe if you haven't already so you can get our videos recommended to you more often. We post big money plays in every single video, as well as the most important information, news, charts, earnings events, and everything you have to know about the stock market every single day. When you subscribe, you will get our videos recommended to you more often. And then let's also give a giant shout out to today's member of the day, alcohol stylist in the Stocked Up Discord who had quite the day with over $820 in profits, and he said Team Tom as well. So shout out to you, Tom. Keep up the great work, guys. It's awesome to see posts like this one, and keep on rolling. We are in a very crazy and a very exciting market right now, and tomorrow is going to be an especially big day with this Nvidia earnings release. It should be a great one. Thank you all so much for watching, and let's crush it in the market tomorrow.